Good evening, my friends, and a big, big welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm still Jeremykyle, and first tonight, a road riddle. How do you get to use the highways with no licence, no insurance, without paying any tax and with absolutely no speed limit? The answer is, of course, as easy as riding a bike. That's my bell. I promise you one thing, this is the only time ever you'll see me doing this. I get irrationally angry about cyclists, I mean it. We wrote this, don't come near me, I'm a psychopath. But seriously, nice. What's not to loathe? There's the toy hoys. They dress up like the Tour de France for a 15-minute pedal to work. You've got the chain gangs, usually 4 of them, riding side by side like some massive peloton, whilst us tax-paying motorists queue behind, getting later and later and more irate. You've got the Sigourney Weavers, through the mist swerving like a shopping trolley with a dodgy wheel. And your Jeremy Vines, whoever he is, with more cameras than Kodak, picking fights and running red lights. It's good news, though. It turns out I'm not the only one who thinks these two-tired tyrants have run out of road. Today, the government announced, thank God, it might just force cyclists to buy insurance, follow speed limits, pay fines for ignoring the laws of our road. So at last, says me with one hand off the wheel, a common-sense reform bringing cycling into the 21st century. Oh no, say the cyclists. Reckless regulation will end up with more people in their cars. We're going to debate that in a minute. But first, my friends, as I run out of breath, and look at why cyclists think I've got this wrong. I'm getting off now, you see. I've got carpal tunnel syndrome. Watch this. Idiot!
Hey! What the are you doing, man?
No wonder you got a camera on you. You should drive like
You rich, yeah? Too busy doing that, mate. 6 points. Is that 1.5 metres overtaking? See you in court. Bye-bye now.
Brilliant. Right, Nick Freeman, the transport lawyer, so good he's known as Mr Loophole, joins me now, plus Britain's most militant cyclist, Dave Sherry. Let's start with you, Nick. You have been urging the government to do this for absolute ages. It is chaos out there. I know cyclists won't like what I'm going to say, right? But really, isn't it time there was a degree of responsibility served on the cycling community, Nick Freeman?
You're absolutely right, Jeremy. They've avoided it for a long time, although it's the small minority who are actually really against it, but they're very vociferous. There are many cyclists who have approached me and said, Nick, we actually agree with what you say because it's going to make our roads safer. And, you know, their priority is to cycle safely. But that there are what are called the lycra louts who are really against it. In any case, I think the day has now come, it's not far away, when the government are going to listen and they're going to actually impose the same legislation that exists for cars and for e-scooters, motorbikes, motorcycles for cyclists. And it needs to happen. It's a sensible thing, and I think we'll all benefit from it. And I think it will actually help remove the friction that exists between the two sets of the main groups, the motorists and the cyclists. It's an unpleasant experience, and you know, on the continent that there's a much more friendly atmosphere. Here it doesn't work very well, and I think this is a step to making us all realise we share limited road space. We need to be collaborative, we work together and try and be safe for everybody. So cyclists have got a new highway code which they welcome. It gives them a massive priority, but also they're going to have to comply with some legislation. They're going to have to be identifiable. And I think if they're identifiable, they'll cycle sensibly and they'll be more responsible because they're going to be accountable, aren't they?
Well, I've got to say one thing. You'll absolutely know in the next 10 minutes why I won't make a lawyer. I welcome to the studio Dave Sherry. You're described as Britain's most hated and militant cyclist, and you're sat there in a stab-proof vest, and you've got a camera on your helmet. David, let's just start as we mean to go on, right? You've got 10 minutes to convince me that I'm wrong and you are right. As a cyclist, you tell my team, you have a duty of care under the law as everyone is using the roads together, yeah?
Yeah.
If you're using the same roads as motorists, then why don't you have to pay for it like motorists have to then?
Because we don't emit an emission.
So that's the only reason you should pay road tax. What about the tax to make sure the roads are safe and well kept? Why shouldn't cyclists pay for that as well as motorists?
Right. Road tax was abolished, was brought in as a visual vehicle excise duty, yeah? Mm-hmm. Basically, it's based on CO2 emissions. Cycles do not do that. Cycles, I don't think, damage too much tarmac. So basically...
But you use the roads and you want potholes fixed, so motorists are supposed to pay for that as well, right?
Yeah, but so do horse riders, mobility scooters.
Oh, come on, man. Listen.
They
Just
use
answer
the road.
question. Right, cyclists. Let's get straight to it, right? The laws for cyclists were brought in 1861 for horses and carts. Here's what I want to say to you, and tell me I'm wrong, right? So there I am in my car, and 9 times out of 10, and I'm not saying it's all of them in their lycra with their beards, they go up inside you, onto the pavement, through a red light. There must be an acknowledgement in the cycling fraternity that there are a number of cyclists, thousands of them, out to make motorists' lives difficult. You must accept that. Why have you got a camera on your helmet? Why are you wearing a stab-proof vest, man?
Because I don't like the prima donna drivers, the ones who like to use handheld devices, the ones who get a bit too close to vulnerable road users. And I understand what you're saying about the law. The Road Traffic Act is there for motorised vehicles. Cyclists are not motorised vehicles.
OK, but if you kill someone, a cyclist goes down for a maximum of 2 years under the 1861 law. I'm not condoning anything like that. If it's a motorist, he goes to prison for life. You can take your CO2 emissions. I want to ask you something. Why are a majority, maybe majority is the wrong word, why do so many cyclists in my life, why are they out to cause trouble? Why have you got a camera? It seems that it's gone the other way. I'm all for cyclists, right, if it's fair and proper, but it's not like that anymore. Motorists in this country, whether you like this or not, are hacked off with cyclists because they feel like we're second-class citizens. Why aren't you insured?
Because we're not a motorised vehicle.
It's just ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but you need insurance for a motorised vehicle.
What about you injure someone? What about insurance for that?
Then it comes down to a civil claim, civil loss.
Got all the answers, haven't you? I don't understand why. All right, give me another one, right? So if I'm out on a Sunday, packs of them, right, and I have to move out 5... Why are they allowed to cycle in pairs? Why not in a straight line?
Cyclists are road users and entitled to use as much of the lane as they deem fit.
So you can use as much of the road as you want because you're road users, but you don't pay for the upkeep of that because you don't have CO2 emissions. Is that right? Do you think that's fair?
Right. Where does it say we have to pay for it or contribute to it?
What I'm saying is, in terms of if you look at it, cyclists seem to be gaining the upper hand.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
For whom?
What?
For whom?
The rest of the world.
Pedestrians are not upset about it, I don't believe. Horse riders? No.
531 incidents, I believe, off the top of my head last year with cyclists hitting or bashing into pedestrians.
And how many vehicles?
Is that your answer?
I'm asking.
Do you not think that cyclists should have a series of rules to give them responsibility, be that tax or... You do?
It's called the Highway Code for cyclists.
Do you not think you should get points if you cause problems on a cycle? Do you not
Under
think
the
that
Road
you should...
Traffic Act, cyclists are not accountable.
Is that it? The Road Traffic Act? Can I bring in Nick? Nick, come on. These laws in 1861 for horses and carts. Come on, man, give me a bit here. It's outdated rubbish, isn't it?
Well, you know, Dave's known for being a vigilant cyclist, and he goes around with his camera, and that's obviously his privilege, to trap motorists who are actually breaking the law. Many motorists have dash cam footage.
Yeah. And
what they have is a picture of a cyclist going on the pavement, knocking someone down, going through red lights. They have nothing more than that because they're not able to identify the cyclist. So, you know, Dave wants it all his way. He wants to be able to identify the motorist, but not be identified himself. So that's the first thing that's wrong. The second thing is he talks about insurance and says, well, there's a civil claim. Many cyclists don't have money. So if they seriously injure, and you've said 531 were seriously injured last year, it was actually a lot more than that. This is the tip of the iceberg. Many aren't actually reported because the cyclist leaves. How is the injured party going to be recompensed by somebody who doesn't have insurance?
Answer that, Dave. Hold on a second, Nick. Answer that.
The person who's injured with it...
Answer that.
Now, let's let Nick finish.
No, answer the question.
Right. Under everyone's car motoring policy, you've got a thing called uninsured losses, and this is for other formalities that transpire on the road. Would that be agreeable, Nick?
No, it wouldn't, Dave, because I'm talking now about when a cyclist hits and injures a pedestrian.
Yeah.
And this is a serious case that's happening more and more frequently, and cyclists are uninsured, so there's no remedy for the cyclist, for the pedestrian, and that's, of course, dependent upon the cyclist being apprehended, stopping at the scene. Many of them don't.
Do you think the law is biased and cyclists
At
get away with things,
At the end
Nick?
of the day, the pedestrian... Well, the pedestrian's, you know, he's injured, he's lying there, he might have a broken leg, whatever, loses his job, etc., etc. No recompense because we haven't got a responsible cyclist who can hold his hands up, he's got money in his pocket, and he has no insurance. So there's a huge disadvantage, and that's why, of course, motorists have to be insured. So it is going to happen. Cyclists are going to have to be insured, along with e-scooter riders and, of course, electric bike riders, which is something that's going to come out. It needs to happen. As far as contribution to roads are concerned, of course, there are no emissions. But there is a cost to the taxpayer, to the public, of having cycle lanes, for allowing them to do what they do. And there's no such thing as a free cycle. There must be some level of contribution. And it's blind to simply say, you know, we don't cause any damage to the road surface, we don't harm the environment, so why should we contribute? Well, the answer is the motorist is having his space surrendered to the cyclist. That's something that he's contributed to financially, and there must be a price for the cyclist to pay for that.
Completely agree.
We're sharing limited space. It doesn't come free.
Thanks, Nick. What's your answer to that, Dave Sherry?
Well, I agree with Nick on that in principle, but then my argument in return would be, are the horse riders...
You should be a politician.
Are the horse riders paying to use
There aren't as many. It's not about horse riders, it's about... But look, here's what I'm going to say. You go out with your camera and your stab vest, you're looking for trouble, you're a vigilante, you love all this stuff. I'm simply saying to you, we motorists feel like it's all stacked in your favour. We pay all the bills, we take all the rubbish, we've got all the fines, and it's about time cyclists, who seem to increasingly dominate our damn roads, took a bit of responsibility. What's wrong with that, man?
Car drivers over the years have had that same mentality. The shoe's on the other foot because too many cyclists were being killed due to negligent driving. And basically the highway code changed the mentality.
Why is this so important to you? Why are you so pro-cycling? Did you fail your driving test or something?
No, I'm a professional driver.
You're a professional driver? And you've taken this... And what... So do you literally feel like you have to wear a stab-proof vest? So bad are my fellow motorists. Is that right?
Sometimes motorists misbehave. And when
so do cyclists.
No one's perfect.
But it's... Well, that's... We're doing it again. You should be in the Conservative government, man. You haven't answered a question. Do you think that cyclists should take more responsibility? Final question for road upkeep, for insurance. Do you think they should be regulated, yes or no? You do?
Yes, if it makes the roads a safer, better place
there
for every road user.
So you agree with me?
To a degree, if it makes things improve, yes.
Excellent.
It would be
there
a
you
step
go.
forward.
And just get rid of that camera. Thank you very much indeed, Dave Sherry. Thank you in Cheshire, Nick Freeman, Mr Loophole.